you have seen me talk about identifying your career archetype. So, I'm going to talk to you about what that means in order to help you in a simple way understand where you fit in and what that could translate to in terms of jobs out there. And my proprietary process and the model that I have created after coaching over 100 people and jobs that they love and having conversations with more than 1,000 job seekers one-on-one, I have come up with some patterns and a process to help people identify their ideal job by starting with their career archetype. Who is familiar with Friends? Has anyone seen the show? I'm so curious. Most people understand the concept. They are friends, they get along. But what's interesting about this is they have completely different personalities. Now, who can tell me what makes them get along? Oh my God. Bingo. Bingo, Gitika, you win the first prize. You are so awesome. That is correct. They accept each other. In other words, they can be their authentic selves around each other. Now, my question to you is, as you're identifying your ideal job, why do you feel you have to impress organizations and fit yourself in a peg hole? Right? So we're going to build upon that concept. And I know it's easier than said, and we'll peel all the layers. But let me explain this farther.
What you do works, period.
Put for me in the chat where you are tuning from and maybe what is your biggest frustration when it comes to identifying your ideal job? Yay, biggest frustration is having too many options. Hello from Toronto, Canada. Not knowing my strengths and how they align with the right job for me. Not being able to decide what is a right fit for me. I have a hard time identifying my skills and figuring out which fields or careers to go after. Very valid question. I have a hard time identifying my skills and figuring out which field or career to go after. My goodness, that was the story of my life. Give me a yes if you've read my story of how I quit over text. Who read that story? No idea how to narrow down what is the right path for me. And I see a whole bunch of yeses around reading my origin story, which is on my website. Beautiful. So now that it's 7 and I warmed you all up, let me get started with my presentation. So obviously today we're going to talk about identifying your ideal job. And a lot of you have seen this. You have seen me talk about identifying your career archetype. So I'm going to talk to you about what that means in order to help you in a simple way understand where you fit in and what that could translate to in terms of jobs out there. And my proprietary process and the model that I have created after coaching over 100 people and jobs that they love and having conversations with more than 1,000 job seekers one-on-one, I have come up with some patterns and a process to help people identify their ideal job by starting with their career archetype. Okay, beautiful. All right. So, who is familiar with Friends? Has anyone seen the show? I'm so curious. Who has seen this show? Friends. Give me a yes if you have. Now, if you have seen the show and maybe you haven't dug too deep into it, most people understand the concept. They are friends, they get along. But what's interesting about this is they have completely different personalities. Now, who can tell me What makes them get along? And by the way, this is totally going to age me. So for those of you in the new generation, apologize if you can't relate to the show. But with any set of characters that are different, think of any sitcom where you have a group of people who get along but are different. What makes them get along? Who can take a stab at guessing what makes these characters get along? All right, this is a pop quiz to see if you're paying attention. Oh my God. Bingo. Bingo, Gitika, you win the first prize. You are so awesome. That is correct. They accept each other. In other words, they can be their authentic selves around each other. Now, my question to you is, as you're identifying your ideal job, why do you feel you have to impress organizations and fit yourself in a peg hole? Right? So we're going to build upon that concept. And I know it's easier than said, and we'll peel all the layers. But let me explain this farther. So each of these characters actually fits into an archetype. And what these characters do beautifully, and in a lot of movies, what they do is they show how these characters embrace their archetype authentically. They all have a different type. So Monica is known as the organized chef. Rachel is known as the creative fashionista. And Ross Geller is the educator. Okay? Now, before I get into why that's even relevant, I want to explain the concept of an archetype to help you understand this so that you can use it to identify your ideal job. So the concept of archetype is actually something that is not new. It comes from a Greek word, and what it means is a typical example of something. So an archetype is a typical example of something. Think of it as a prototype. It is a story pattern universally understood, and it is used to help people relate, to help people know where they fit in society so that they can play the roles that help them become their authentic selves. Okay? Who can relate to that? Who finds this concept something that they resonate with? Give me a like if that resonates with you, if you like that idea, or if you've heard it before. Wonderful. Okay, so in movies, especially Disney, and if you know me well, and if you've seen my carousels and all the different social media posts I've created, you already know that I am a huge Disney fan, and I love using Disney to teach people. I use Disney characters to teach people concepts about agile, to teach people the concept of storytelling so that they excel in interviews, because at the end of the day, I like to make this fun. Now in movies, in every movie, there are common archetypes. There's usually the mentor, there's usually a villain, and sometimes there is a dreamer. And why do movies have archetypes is to create that relatability. Because we as human beings, psychologically, the way we are designed, we love seeing patterns. Patterns help us create meaning. We want to know where we fit in because we don't want to feel alone. We want to feel like we belong. And that is why it's important to know what your type is. Okay, so let me talk to you about some of the mistakes that I personally made that I see a lot of people make. So I had a lot of trouble identifying what my career sweet spot is. In fact, in one of my social media posts, I talk about how at a very young age, I used to help my mom at her daycare. And I truly enjoyed helping kids learn how to use computers. I was 13 at the time. And I remember voicing out loud to my mom that one day I wanted to help kids with disabilities or people who struggle to learn in a fun way, in a no pressure way where they don't feel dumb, because I felt dumb a lot in the classroom. And I wanted to build products, digital products, fun, gaming products that would help kids learn. But I totally forgot about that because I got, drawn into the corporate world. I got lured into the money. I forgot my why. I forgot my values. I felt like I was good enough. I felt like I was not good enough. And I just went through the motions and followed the herd, and just did all the things, ignored what was inside me and what was driving me, and just did all the mundane, boring things just to make money. So who can identify with that concept of forgetting your why, forgetting that little voice inside you or your dream, and just getting drawn into basically what you think is going to make you a ton of money, even if you don't enjoy it? So let's talk about that. Why do people ignore the voice inside them? Why do they ignore their heart and they get pulled into a direction that they don't enjoy? And my answer to that is imposter syndrome. So I am sorry, Simon Sinek, but you are wrong. I don't believe in the idea of starting with your why. I actually believe that you need to start with your fears, not your why, because if you don't do that, you're going to be blocked. So let me shed more light into that. One of my fears when I was in the corporate world was starting over. That's what held me back. That is what kept me from figuring out what I wanted to do. That was one of my biggest blockers. I wasn't even open to the idea of trying different things because I was so attached to making a six-figure salary after I purchased my condo in Toronto. And that made me freeze and crippled me in a way. Okay, so give me a like and or put in the comment if that is you. Put in the comment fear of starting over if that is you. I'm so curious because later on after the presentation, I'm actually going to add up. I'll do a fun thing where I add up all the different fears and share with everyone the statistics around which one won the most. So if there is a fear that you identify with, definitely let me know. Wonderful. Ola, thank you. Yes, especially for baby boomers. Yes, thank you. Okay, beautiful. The other fear that we have is fear of incompetency, or also known as fear of failure. So I wasn't sure I'd be good at something or had the energy to go back to school because I had that misconception that if I want to make a change in my life, I had to go and get another degree. And so that was another blocker for me, is the fear of incompetency. And guess what? I end up doing something that you're not taught in school, which is the scariest thing, being an entrepreneur. No one teaches you how to be an entrepreneur. So talk about fear of incompetency and conquering that. Okay, the other blocker that contributes to imposter syndrome is something that I see often in my practice working with people. Them sharing a lot of their vulnerability with me and their stories, is there's a lot of childhood baggage or trauma that ends up blurring our vision. So if you were told as a kid that you're not good enough, or you've had parents who were hard on you and wanted you to get straight A's, or maybe you had a boss, and I'm gonna just nickname your boss as a Grinch, and your Grinch boss kept telling you that you were underperforming or you were not good enough because they weren't a great manager and they're horrible at teaching you, because a boss's job is to be your mentor. And sometimes bad mentors and bad teachers, because they don't know how to teach, they put it on you, right? And so you carry that baggage with you and you end up letting it blur your vision. So Actually, I'll give you a little story. In my career as an agile coach, in one of my roles, my boss said to me that I was a terrible coach. And I held that in me for the longest time. And I associated that with being a terrible team facilitator. Yet, if you were to ask my clients, they'd tell you, my goodness, not as amazing at facilitating group sessions. They're fun, we laugh, we're excited. But it took me an entire year till I started basically coaching people in a group setting. It took me a whole year because of that baggage. So sometimes what happens is people confuse the baggage with them not being good at something or not enjoying it. And this is why I say that you got to start with your fears and not your why, because if you don't resolve that, that's going to block you from addressing the issue and knowing what you enjoy. All right, so here's my cure for this. This is my simple, 4-step approach. 4 helpful things, and obviously it's not a complete cure, everyone's different, but 4 helpful things that you can try today and do something different, because I don't want you to come out of the session just same old you. I want you to improve, even if it's incrementally. Even if you improve by 5%, I'm happy. Okay? And if you find any of these things helpful and it helps you improve, I'd love to hear your story. Send me a DM and share with me. I'd love to know about it. But here are my 4 pointers. The first thing I'm going to advise you to do is surround yourself by a board of directors, not just one mentor, not just one person, but a board of advisors or directors. That is the main reason I created a community. And when my clients come to me and say, hey, I want to work with you one-on-one, I say, sure, you're going to work with me one-on-one, but coming to the group sessions and being part of the community is mandatory, because I truly believe that the job search process, the way people approach it, is so mechanical, so process-oriented. Yet at the beginning, I shared with you all how it's all about not being alone and feeling like you belong. So how are you supposed to figure that out when you're treating it like a mechanical process with, oh my God, I'm going to work on my resume. Oh my God, I want to pass the application tracking system. That's not what's going to help you. If you want to be able to achieve anything in life, you need a support network, and you need to surround yourself with people who are going to uplift you, not the negative people who keep telling you, oh no, that is hard and you can't do this. Look at all the successful people in life, people who achieve things late in their age, like Colonel Sanders from KFC. I mean, he was over the age of 60 when he launched his restaurant. So why can't you do that, right? So you got to surround yourself with people who got to where you need to go. The second thing you want to do is work through your fears, right? A great tool to do that is journaling. So how I got over all of the negative baggage in order for me to be a successful career coach is I had to work with coaches, and I also had to work on my fears. I had to identify all those fears, write them down, and face them. And then you need to remember that you are enough. There is a lot of addiction around certifications, and I truly believe that comes from an underlying feeling that we are not enough. I'm all about learning, but at the same time, don't go overboard, because if you're just learning, and you're not applying, then you're not gonna get to where you need to be. The 4th thing that I wanted to share, and this is a quote from one of my clients, Heath, whom I coached, who was a truck driver, did not have a degree, and landed an agile mentor role with me at a top gaming company. When we interviewed him for our community podcast, he shared this wonderful quote that says, don't give up before the miracle happens. Just because someone else who is negative tells you, oh, I tried and I wasn't able to do it. Well, what about all these Olympic players who win? If they listened to someone who told them, oh, don't apply to the Olympics because I tried and I didn't do it, they wouldn't have won the medal. So instead of feeling like you need to be like everyone else, how about become a leader and become the exception and the 1%, right? So those are my 4 tips that I live by. Okay, mistake number 2, feeling like you need to start over. And that is, oh my God, one of the biggest mistakes. One of the things that I kept saying when I was in the corporate world is, so again, in my social media posts, I talk about it in one of my posts. I felt like I had to go on a eat, love, pray mission where I have to do something completely different in order to be happy. And this is why people spend years chasing after a role. You got to be realistic. There needs to be a common thread. You cannot go from basically, I don't know, a painter, to a baker. There has to be a common thread. So let me explain a little bit about what that means. When you're hired by an organization, okay, you don't get paid to learn. Sorry, but that is the truth. No company is going to pay you to learn. They're going to hire you because you have some type of expertise that no one else has, or they can't do it without you. Okay? So when you're trying to make a career transition, there has to be something common that you're bringing in. It can be a complete change, and it can't be, oh, I did a certification and now the company's going to pay me to basically make a whole bunch of mistakes, right? And mistakes are fine, but there's got to be something of value that you bring in. And when I coach people through their career transitions, there is a concept that we came up with in my community. In fact, one of my clients, Rachel, coined it. It's called Navigate Your Career One Lily Pad at a Time. So I'm going to give you an example. And I'll use Rachel as an example. My client, Rachel, was actually an assistant professor of theater. She was teaching theater. She wanted to get into tech. So she didn't go from being a assistant professor in theater to helping a company called User Testing with their UX research. Impossible. There had to be a lily pad to get there. So she worked with a startup pro bono. She learned some of the tech tools. And then she went from that lily pad to becoming a content manager, leveraging her theater and teaching experience to help researchers. And she brought in an expertise, which is research as a professor, into her role. So you got to identify that common thread. And you know what? Most of us, when we choose our first career, there's got to be something that you love about it. So you don't have to completely change. When I was in the corporate world, what I loved about agile coaching is the coaching part. It's empowering teams, it's creating engagement. Now, as a career coach, I'm doing these lives because I love teaching you all. I love empowering you all. I love engaging you all. And I facilitate group sessions in my practice that engage people, that make learning fun. So you see how that is a common thread that I brought with me from my previous world. So you got to find that pattern or that common thread. A very tactical exercise that I'm going to give you that can help you with that, I call it the chunks of 10. This is an exercise, a journaling exercise that I give to all of my clients when they start with me. And it is part of the career archetype quiz that I get my clients to fill out. And it's very simple. You start from birth all the way to present, and you chunk out your life in increments of 10 years. Because it's going to take forever if you try to remember every year of your life, right? This is why I say increments of 10. You could do 5, whatever is easier for you. And think of 3 moments that you truly enjoyed, where you lost track of time, where you felt empowered, where it brought you joy, and write about it. And when you complete that exercise, from birth to 10, you're going to start seeing patterns. And I'll tell you some of the patterns that I saw, okay, that can help you. When I did this journaling exercise between ages of 0 and 10, one of the powerful moments for me was I was involved in a play called Oliver Twist. I was the main character. I loved to perform. I loved to sing. I also, and between 10 and 15, I taught my sister how to read. Now, the weird thing is, I actually wrote resumes for my friends just for fun, and I didn't even think much of that. I also helped my mom at her preschool run her business, basically, and design curriculums for her computer science class. 20 to 30, I was a consultant. I loved teaching clients and simplifying information for them in a fun way. So the common thread across the board is that I'm a teacher. Do I have to be a teacher in order to be fulfilled? No. There are many jobs where you can have that archetype where you can be a teacher. You can be a teacher as a consultant. You can be a teacher as a trainer. You can be teacher as a career coach, right? I'm teaching you all right now. I'm doing what I love. So that is basically the little secret, is you got to find that pattern. Okay, beautiful. Let us talk about the next mistake. The next mistake is actually my favorite mistake, and the big mistake that keeps people from moving forward when it comes to identifying their job. When I started career coaching, I didn't know about that mistake very well. I worked with a client who took 4 months to identify his ideal job, and he still didn't feel that it was perfect. Trying to get it perfect. All right. So let me shed more light on that. A lot of you have been involved in building products, whether it's physical products or digital products. What makes a product successful? Think about the iPhone, right? Compare the first iPhone to the iPhone today. Would you buy it right now? Probably not. It sucked at the beginning compared to today, right? How did Apple end up with an amazing, beautiful iPhone like today? And if you don't like iPhone, I apologize. Think about another model. But they got it right through experimentation. They got it right through experimentation. They designed it, they built it, they tested it, they launched multiple iterations, and they keep getting closer and closer and closer to what people want. Now think about this for a moment when it comes to your career. You're having a coffee with someone, they tell you, oh, you should be a scrum master or you should be a project manager. Let us say you're not even in the tech industry. You have no idea what it's like. To you, it could mean like be an astronaut. Your knowledge of being a scrum master could might as well be like what an astronaut does, because you don't go day in, day out. You don't know what it's like. You haven't tried it. You don't even know if you like it or not. So the thing is that until you test it, until you test drive a job and figure out the aspects of it that you enjoy, you're never going to know. All right. So waiting to be perfect and waiting for the perfect job is people's biggest downfall. I will tell you right now that what got me to become a career coach is probably trying out all the different jobs. And just because I was a scrum master before and I was a product manager before, it's not like they blacklist you and tell you, oh, because you tried all these things and you weren't that great at them, you can't be this in this career. No one keeps track of that. So the key is that you gotta learn through your mistakes, and you don't have to be amazing at it. Who's that guy? Johnny Depp. My brain just froze. I'll give you an example with Johnny Depp, right? He actually jokes about how he was a terrible telemarketer. Do you judge him as an actor based on his terrible telemarketing skills? You probably didn't even know that he was a telemarketer. So who cares? Try things, fail. It's like going on dates. You're not going to know if you like someone or not unless you go and date them. So think of your job as a date. Try it out. If it sucks, you can change it. No one is going to keep track. Now, I want to give you a little analogy. There's this whole big thing about you want to treat yourself like a product. I actually disagree with this, but let me explain something about products. A product is anything, whether it's physical or digital, where you provide value. Okay, so each one of us provides value to society. That's why we got hired. That's why we get paid. You know, you get paid for the value you create for an organization. Now, with every product, there are people who are going to use it, and there's an organization umbrella where you can provide that value. So I'm going to tell you a story of how I built my first product in my business. This is a very crappy representation of basically where I started. I had a crappy logo. If you see my logo now, it's different. I basically did Zoom recordings of my modules and lessons, and I recorded my group sessions. And if I hadn't started there, I wouldn't have been able to know what information is useful to my clients. What are the things that are unnecessary that I needed to take out? I pushed it out. It wasn't perfect. Okay. But what made it better is through iteration, is through testing, is through trying something. There is the concept of minimal viable product. And minimal viable product is all about the least amount of work that you put in into a product that would create the highest impact, because products are expensive. And if you think about it, it is expensive for you to go to work. Yeah, you get paid for it, but you pay with your time and you pay with your effort, you know, to show up. And when you are getting all of these certifications because you want to get it perfect versus just going and trying it out, you're actually making it more expensive for yourself. And so let's talk about how products get built. When products get built, we gather data. We do research, we figure out what customers want, right? The F1, F2, F3, F4, F5 are the different features in the product. Think iPhone, the camera function, the texting function, you know, all that stuff, right? Now, when, by the way, if you experience technical difficulties, make the window small, don't make it big, don't maximize it, and just refresh. All right. A lot of times, while we do, you know, try to figure out what customers want, the features that go into our product are all assumptions, because until your product is launched and the customer uses these features, they're all assumptions. Okay. Now, the more assumptions you have in a product, the higher the risk, because you're spending all this time building these features and you don't know if the customer is going to like them or if they're going to work. Now, here's the thing. When you are trying to figure out what your ideal job is, you're making a whole bunch of assumptions. All of the roles and responsibilities that are in the job, you're assuming that you're going to enjoy them, but you have no idea if you're going to like them until you do the job. Okay? Your ideal job, your next ideal job is your MVP. That's how I want you to think about it. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can try it. And if there are aspects of it you don't like, you can iterate on it. For example, I did business analysis. I realized what I didn't like about business analysis is that I don't get to make the decisions. And so I iterated on that. I said, I love the analysis part. I love the requirements gathering. I love understanding my customers, but I want to be the decision maker. And so I iterated on it and I became a product owner. And that's what I mean by iterating. But if I hadn't tried business analysis, I wouldn't have come to the conclusion that I want to be a decision maker and that I don't have that as a business analyst. Okay, here's the thing about transferable skills that a lot of you have been asking me. The thing is, there's a lot of transferable skills across a lot of jobs, especially in tech. So F1 is facilitation. F1 represents facilitation. Let me make it the entire slide. They all have that in common. So if you start as a Scrum Master and you realize that you love facilitation, you can actually pivot into project management because that is something that you did before. Or you can pivot into product management because that is something that you've done before. It's not like you have to relearn facilitation, right? So it doesn't matter what order you land, whether it's Scrum Master first or project manager or product manager. At the end of the day, that characteristic is something that is transferable across the three. Now I'm going to talk a little bit more about how you can dial in even more and know more definitively that your prototype or your MVP is the right MVP for you. I'll dig into that later, so make sure that you stay till the end. But I just wanted to portray to you that it's okay for you to get it wrong. It's not going to be the end of the world, but it's better that you take action and you make that change than spin and spin and spin. It's like when we build products and we're so scared, we want to get it perfect that we never end up launching the product. So it's the same thing with your career. Now, this is where I don't agree with people when it comes to comparing your telling people that, oh, you're a product, you're a product. You are not a product. You are a brand. You're a brand with a portfolio of products. You don't have to commit your entire life to one. Just like Google. Google started with the Google search. Then they ended up, acquiring YouTube. They also offer Gmail, Google Drive. You can navigate your career like an entrepreneur. Build new products, add new titles and roles to your portfolio. It is totally okay. It is actually a great thing. It what makes you learn and evolve and grow as a human being. Okay? So that is a thing. However, you need to focus on one at a time. Unless you have a whole bunch of minions, working on 5 different brands, or you're like a large organization as Google with multiple companies, you're not going to be able to manage branding for multiple products. And this is why I advise people to stick to one product at a time. But the order or your choice of which product to go with doesn't matter. Okay, I'm a brand too. I was an agile coach. I was a product manager. I was a UX consultant. I'm a CEO right now, and I'm a career coach. So it is a lot more powerful when you think of yourself as a brand and you start moving away from the concept of, I need to pigeonhole myself to a title. I need to search for jobs based on a title. I, in fact, encourage people to search on jobs based on roles and responsibilities, not titles. Okay, who wants to learn the formula to figure out your career archetype? Put for me in the chat if you are interested in learning the formula on how to figure out your career archetype so that you can get less assumptions and a good hypothesis for your MVP ideal job. Okay, so here's the formula. After interviewing, as I mentioned, more than 1,000 job seekers one-on-one, and that does not include all of the people that I coached in my corporate life through my 15 years. What I realized, not a single person who got on a call with me didn't say that I want to help people create a social impact. We all want to help people. Every job out there, you're helping someone because they're consuming the value that you create. Okay? The other thing that I learned is that what also drives people is solving problems and making a difference. We all want to make a difference. If we feel that we're in a company where we're not making a difference and we're not solving a problem, then we feel demotivated. And that is what creates fulfillment. The third component is that most people want to be able to create a social impact, do something that helps people by solving a problem. Now, the key here that most people neglect, in a way that is in alignment with their preferred collaboration style. So maybe you are the kind of person who is a writer, or maybe you are the kind of person who is basically more verbal, right? So every single person has a collaboration style, and most people ignore it. Most people focus on the title. They don't think about these three things, and then they realize that they are not themselves. And this is where the dissatisfaction happens. So these are the three ingredients. And this is what I help my clients figure out when I work with them. Now, I'm not going to be able to tell each one of you definitively and exactly what your career archetype is and how to figure out each of these three things, but my hope is that you'll have a starting point. So here's how you can figure out each piece. Now, in order to figure out what type of problems you want to solve, I realized that every single role out there, every single job can be broken down to these three building blocks. So if you think about food and macros, every food that's out there, doesn't matter what food it is, if it's a banana, if it's chocolate, if it's a steak, now I'm getting hungry. It's made up of these three building blocks: fat, carbs, and protein. It's the same thing with every single job. Every single job out there is composed of these three elements: people interaction aspects. It could be interactions with customers. It could be interactions with teams internally. Process components, improving the ways of working and the process in which we build products. And then the product itself, the features in the product. So you need to figure out what composition you belong to, or what job has the perfect composition for you. That is the formula. Okay, so so we talk about what problems or what type of problems you enjoy solving, if you love solving people problems or process problems or product problems. The other aspect is, what is your problem solving style? And that is what you also need to figure out. So you need to be in an organization or on a team that accepts your problem solving style. So for example, I'm a very direct person, right? Someone else could be more of an analytical person. So you need to figure out your style in which you solve problems, and it needs to be complementary to what the other team member's style is. Otherwise, you're going to clash. So you remember how I talked about friends? The reason they get along is because they complement each other. Yet we forget about that. And the thing is, when you work at a company, you're not alone. You have to get along with people. So you need to figure that out. Okay, so back to friends. Monica is known as a control freak, but that's actually not a bad thing because you need process-oriented people. So if I was coaching Monica through a career transition, I will say that she thrives on the process side of things, right? She is the kind of person who is great at putting systems and structures. If you watch the show, you see that Monica ends up being a chef. Chefs are very detail-oriented or process-oriented. They lay out the ingredients. They have a system. And some of her quotes are, "We're supposed to start having fun in 15 minutes," right? Reminds you of a project manager. So you see how that can translate to different careers. She can easily go from chef to project manager to, organizer. Okay, Rachel, she's a creative. Most creatives fit in the people and product side of the Venn diagram. So Rachel used to mix up drinks. She is definitely not a Monica. Don't make her a chef because she'll definitely screw up a recipe or like a meal at a restaurant when there needs to be consistency. But she's a very creative person. She's very relational. And this is what makes her great at being a fashion executive, right? She's a very creative person. Ross cares more about people and process. People who thrive in people and process environments usually don't care that much about customers. They care about internal teams, internal people, and they love to help people with their ways of working. And ways of working is tied to teaching, right? So I was really good. This is what made me a great agile coach. This is what made me a great project manager. This is what made me also at some point a great consultant, is because I cared more about the people and the process side of things, not as much the customer. Okay, so here are some general patterns that I'm going to give you, and they're not extremely definitive, and I obviously need to learn the nuances of each person. But the general pattern that I see amongst product managers is the people and product intersection. Product managers, very creative people. They want to have a say in the features within the product. They care more about the customers than the team. Doesn't mean that they don't care about the team, but they care more about the customer. So an example was my client, Mimi. And the interesting thing is my client, Mimi, she was a UX designer, and then she pivoted into product management. And the common thread, whether you're a UX designer or a product manager, is you care about advocating for the customer and delighting them. And you care about building products and want to have a say in the features of the product. So you see how that is a common thread? Because we were able to answer that question, she didn't end up being a project manager. She didn't end up being an agile coach because she cared more about the customer. She prioritized the customer over the teams. Okay, general pattern that I see amongst coaches is they care about the people and the process more than the product. This is why sometimes there's a clash, because agile coaches, scrum masters, even project managers care more about how the team operates, care more about keeping the people happy versus the customer. So that's a hint for you all. My client Heath, he went through an identity crisis. He had no idea if he should pick between product manager or scrum master. I asked him that question. He said to me, I care more about the teams. Boom, agile mentor, not product manager. Okay, general patterns I see amongst developers. If you notice, developers, their biggest nightmare most of the time is talking to customers. And when they start caring more about customers and wanting to talk to customers, that's when they transition into more of a product manager role, because your archetype can evolve actually, right? So you need to figure out what is your archetype today. So they care more about the product and the way the product is built. They care more about that than the customer. Of course, there's an element of them caring about the customer, but I worked a lot with developers, and some of the general patterns that I saw, and we'd fight over it, is I want to be creative. I want to create this cool product. And I'm like, well, what about what the customer just said? Please let me experiment, right? So product and process. So that is pretty much my presentation. My biggest takeaway for you is really taking those three elements into account when you're navigating your job search and you're trying to figure out your ideal job. Don't just focus on title. Don't just focus on what everyone else, says that you should do. Start with what's holding you back and what you're scared of. One of my clients who landed at Amazon, what blocked him was starting over, because he was an entrepreneur and he worked so hard to get to build what he built, and he didn't want to just throw it away for nothing. And until we worked through that fear, that's when he went for his ideal job and landed at Amazon. So working through that is important. Knowing who you are and embracing your style of working is important. Knowing what part of the Venn diagram and what characteristics you care about. Do you care more about customers? Do you care more about the product? Do you want to work with the teams more? Do you want to work with the customer more? That is going to help you boil down the right combination for you. Now, if you are interested, I am trying to refine my career archetype model. And when I work with clients, the model is in my head. I get them to go through all of the exercises and I interpret it all and I provide options for them. And what we end up doing is going on Google Jobs and researching those options and looking at different job families and narrowing them down. If you are interested in trying out my career archetype quiz, definitely send me a DM. If you're interested in me launching a workshop that helps you basically interpret the results of your career archetype quiz and allows me to recommend options for you to research to narrow down your ideal job, let me know in the chat and I'll make sure that I basically add you to the list when I launch the workshop. And if you have any questions, since we have 10 minutes, I'd love to know and answer them. Okay, so other than not just technology industry, I've actually worked with people within finance. I worked with people who landed learning consultant roles, lots of people from the world of academia. What else? Those types of roles. Marketing, a lot of people in marketing that I've coached. So it doesn't have to be in tech. Could one person be a subject matter, a Scrum Master and a PM at the same time, having multiple personas? It is possible, but I tend to find that you need to be clear on what your preference is, right? If it is 50-50, there are people who are 50-50, then that's good for you to know. And that is where you can look for a role that has that perfect combination, and you can be hyper aware of that. Generally, though, I do see people lean from one to another because they are very orthogonal roles. Either you want to be the person who protects the team, or you want to be the person who's the client advocate. It's very hard to balance both. Very, very hard. And you can be a coach as a product manager and a scrum master. But what is different is who you're coaching. Do you want to coach customers or do you want to coach your team? So that is the biggest difference. This is why people get confused as soon as they see Scrum Master, like, I want to be a coach, so I want to be a Scrum Master. No, you can be a coach in different roles. So coaching is actually not the archetype. It is actually the combination of process, product, and people roles and responsibilities that you need to figure out if you enjoy. Have you helped clients who have a variety of skill sets, considering they have worked a variety of roles? Absolutely. Being a jack of all trades myself, I have worked with a lot of people who are jack of all trades. One of my clients, Amy, She wore many hats. She was in marketing. She was a project manager. In the end, we landed on consultant. And there is an element of needing to be a jack of all trades as a consultant. But what we truly realize is that she really loves to be client facing. She loves to advise clients, and she cares about building the right things for clients. And so she became an agile consultant as a result. I have seen roles that say PMSM, and I wonder how that plays out. Yeah, there are, but I would ignore the title. I would look at the job description. That is the best indicator. In fact, when I get people to do the exercise of narrowing their ideal job, we look at the combination of roles and responsibilities. While the title might say PMSM, you might find that it leans more towards one than the other. Or you may realize, you know what, it has the perfect blend for me. And so I invite you to focus more on the roles and responsibilities. And the other thing that I coach my clients to do is create a decision-making criteria. So your mandatory wants, your mandatory needs, and that ends up formulating through the career archetype quiz. Because if I ask you right now what it is that you want, you're probably going to say, I don't know. But when you do these exercises where there are questions that make you think about what you want, it's kind of like when you go to an ice cream shop and you're trying to choose an ice cream flavor, and the wonderful person who helps you choose asks you, do you like something sweet, or do you want something that is fruity or creamy? And that's what helps you narrow it down. And that is what I do in the career archetype quiz, is I ask you powerful questions that help you narrow it down and realize what is important to you beyond just roles and responsibilities. The three things that we talked about: what kind of problems do you enjoy solving? What is your personality type? What are your internal intrinsic motivators? Are you motivated by status? Are you motivated by more decision-making power? Are you more motivated around organization? Do chaotic environments stress you out? Do you need more order? Or do you thrive on flexibility and you don't want to be tied down to 9 to 5? Hello, that's me. Why am I doing a session at 7 o'clock? It's because I don't want to show up to a job every day at 9 o'clock. It stresses me out. So there are a lot of questions in the career archetype quiz that help you figure that out. The three components that we talked about: the types of problems that you want to solve, the style in which you solve those problems, and the type of social impact that you want to make. Those are the big things that you need to answer. And that is what helps people narrow things down. Beautiful. Okay. We got one more minute. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming out and staying till the end. If you are interested in my career archetype quiz, certainly type in career archetype so that we don't lose track of you. Remember that I'm just one person. So please make it easy for me to contact you, because I don't want to disappoint anyone. And if you also are interested in my career transition program and want to work with me more on a one-on-one basis, then definitely go on my website and fill out the career diagnosis. But otherwise, just type in, the quiz and the workshop, and I will get back to you and make sure that I provide you the information. Thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful day. If you're not connected with me as a first degree connection, please send me a connection request, because I'm not going to be able to message you otherwise, and your name might not be showing up in the live. So please do so, and connect with me as well and DM me so that we don't lose track of you.
It's the success.
not only to think, but to act outside of the box.
You need a coach to help guide you on what your sweet spot is.
What you do works, period.